Hello, YouTube. I'm your host, Jesse, and welcome to the In Your Head podcast. With me today on the couch, co-host of the
I'm
Plus
still
Two-
a host.
host, but co-host. I
I'm here,
guess.
but no, just say host.
Okay,
Don't take
host,
this away
host,
from me.
host of the Plus Two podcast and
Plus two comedy podcast.
Plus Two comedy podcast.
Oh, you're doing real bad already.
Oh, you're gonna start early, huh? You're gonna start in real early, huh? Will? All right. Liam. Will, how are you, sir?
Right.
Welcome.
That's my first podcast handshake, I think.
No, but people on podcasts don't shake
No,
hands to
well,
welcome
you're
their
not
guests.
Doing a visual thing usually.
I guess that's true. A lot of people have told me that they're not used to the YouTube part of it. And
Yeah,
I know too, for you guys
hate
as well.
it. I don't like the way I look at all. Just in general, but I don't have to see myself in life, so like, I can pretend I'm a different person.
No, it has been a lot of people say like, oh, it's that, but I try to add a little bit of video element to it, so I thought that would be that's kind of what got me thinking about it, especially with you guys adding the video element. It kind of
You added
spurred
the
me.
video element to it.
Well, you didn't have to let me do it. You guys could have.
No,
just
there's no
squashed
reason
that.
not to. But I liked it when me and Noah talked about it. We're like, yeah, Jesse wants to do video stuff. We were both like, well, if Jesse wants to do all the work, then sure, he can totally do that.
I'm glad it was put like that. That's so much better. So I always welcome all of our guests to the podcast with the statute of initiation question. So if you could bring a story to the table for us of something that you may have done in the past that's marginally illegal, something questionable that you might not have been too proud of or something like that.
I was trying to think of this because I have some not fun stories. I wasn't a bad kid, but I had bad kid friends, so I was always just like crime adjacent a lot. But in fact, this story shows that I was never, I don't know, even when I get pulled over with cops, I mean, I'm a charismatic white guy, so I'm always just fine.
Yeah, it helps.
But I was in high school, and me and a bunch of friends of mine we had just finished, I think, seeing a movie. We were out in the parking lot, just dicking around, and a friend of ours found like a fire extinguisher in a dumpster nearby in the parking lot, and proceeded to draw a penis on the parking lot with this fire extinguisher. And then a cop car pulls up, and we see him, and there's just a cop car behind this dude. The dude doesn't see him, and we're like, Rich, you stop. And he's like, no, I'm not done. And then it's whoop, whoop.
You're done now.
And he turns around, and he throws the extinguisher over his head like he didn't have anything. And so the cops, it's one cop, they kind of populate themselves. So like 3 more cop cars just showed up to handle these ruffian children.
Well, you got to call for backup. You never know what can happen, and I understand that anymore.
No, it's unnecessary. So there was like 8 of us. Everybody who had a girlfriend, their girlfriends were all sitting on a parking curb crying. They had never had to deal with cops before. Me and my buddy Chad, this was old hat. We're like, yeah, they talk to you, and then you go home. This is Saturday. This is what happens. And then a buddy of mine had been in one of the cars the whole time, and he never got out. And even when the cops showed up, he just didn't get out. And finally, one of the cops notices him, and he walks over and he taps on the window, and he rolls it down just like a little bit, which was the best to me. And he's just like, what are you doing in the car? And he just looks at him and goes, eating chicken, which he was. He had a thing of fried chicken. And he goes, no, but what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm with the fat guy. And the cop looks up and goes, which one are you, the fat guy? And I just went, which one you think? And he got really embarrassed. He was like, you guys can go home. It's fine. And we left our buddy Rich Chalastri there to deal with the cops for the next 3 hours.
Oh, man.
Yeah, but I guess the one cop felt bad for calling me fat, so I got to go home.
Oh, man. Now, that's an interesting one. I mean, I guess I could see the slight illegality of the... I don't even know if it would be a stolen fire extinguisher at that point.
I guess vandalism, but he didn't.
Yeah.
I think they called his mom.
Yeah.
Which is worse than a crime.
What was the age you guys were
we
about
were like
at this point in time?
17.
Okay.
Like just old enough to have a car in Jersey.
And
I think
slightly
like
older than knowing better.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it depends where you're raised. Some of the guys that I've known, that line is usually drawn a little bit later.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't draw a penis anymore. I'd try to be a little more creative. But other than that, most of that story would probably still happen.
No, it's I love seeing the stories everybody brings because everybody has a bit of a different element to it as far as how much illegality, that like how much of a thing is illegal to them, which is always funny for different people. My first guest, it was like almost grand theft, and it's like I was like, okay, this was I said marginally illegal,
Yeah.
and the idea for this whole thing sprung from your podcast. As a matter of fact, one of your episodes.
Crimes.
One of your episodes. No, it was a really roundabout story, but you had a gentleman on, and I don't even remember his name. I don't even know if you may. It was probably just before Halloween, and you guys were interviewing him, and you mentioned something about you guys were squeezing blood out of a rock, trying to get this guy to talk, and now you probably know who I'm talking about.
We've had a couple.
Yeah, well, this was recently, but I mean, really was trying to squeeze blood out of a rock. He wouldn't even talk about his projects. And he had a webcomic or something. He was like, I can't talk about it, and he wouldn't give me much information.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's one of the webcomic people.
Okay. Well, it was Halloweenish, and you even asked him because you were just trying to get anything. And Noah said, well, what's the most recent candy you've had? And you said, well, and the guy's like, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like,
oh, I do kind of remember.
Yeah, and we were all kind of stunned for a second. But then I sat and thought about it, and I said, well, what if, I mean, again, we were just at PowderCon, so you see the imported stuff. And I said, what if it's those imported Kinder Eggs that are technically, like, not allowed to be sold in the U.S. because they're, the illegal for food reasons or, because it's got something inedible.
Explode.
No, it's just got something inedible
no,
inside
I'm thinking
of
the
thing.
The crackers.
Yeah, those ones. Yeah. No, these were. I just thought it was like, oh, maybe he had the chocolate Kinder Egg and didn't want to tell anybody about it. Like, ooh, and he was like. So I thought about it, and that's kind of where this question kind of came from. Was
what's distilling? Is that a felony?
Distilling? Not if you don't resell it. You are perfectly legal to make your own.
No, you absolutely cannot. No, not fermenting. You can make your own beer.
Oh.
Distilling is very illegal.
Oh, well.
That's, where you boil out the water.
Right. Yeah, you boil it out, the alcohol.
Moonshining.
Right. Well, the alcohol evaporates at a lower temperature, if I'm correct, and then so you get that.
Yeah, and you condense
right.
it, and it drips into the whole thing. I've messed around with some distilling. I'd like to think it's a felony.
I thought it was only if you sold it, but
no, you super cannot distill your own alcohol in New Jersey.
Okay, I didn't know that. So that's some interesting thing. If I had a research department like you guys do, I'm sure we could find this out while we're talking. But unfortunately, it's just us, so this is what it is. But no, it's fun to see. A lot of people go back to stories from when they were. Thankfully, a lot of the stories go back to when people were younger. I've yet to have somebody come on and go, "Oh man, like 3 days ago it was." So luckily it hasn't been that much, but it's been funny kids stories, which I was hoping for. A lot of the people that talk about it, and it's some interesting stories for sure. So it's and this one included because of course what did the guy think of was drawing a penis on the ground. So
yeah,
and I guess he was lucky that it was a powder extinguisher.
Yeah.
Because if it was just one of the CO2 ones, he just would have been like, "Yay, my drawing's gone before it's even half done."
Yeah, it was clearly broken. They were throwing it out, so it was just kind of like spurting out dust.
Yeah,
probably cancer dust. So it's probably
sure that stuff's not safe for human consumption.
No,
probably not.
We didn't eat it, Jesse.
Well, that's good. If you're snorting.
Oh, we should have snorted it.
Snorting extinguisher dust off the pavement.
Could have taken like a ton more cops that way.
It's how they smuggle drugs. That's really what it was. They were
fire extinguishers.
Maybe that's what happened. They were actually smuggling drugs inside this extinguisher. That was a dead drop, and you guys were just sprinkling powdered cocaine all over the parking lot.
I have a constant fear that I'm going to stumble upon a drug money dead drop, because I'm not stupid. Well, I'd like to think I'm not stupid.
No.
So I know that I would probably see that and be like, oh, that's probably drug money. But I love money so much.
It's a tough thing to pass up. I guess when you're in that kind of spot. Well, but you look at No Country for Old Men.
Yep.
And you find that case.
And
something bad just happened right here, and and you're like,
Except I would be the dude that took the money in the hotel room, and I would try to cut the shotgun, like saw it off, but I'd get real tired like halfway through, and like I'd put on Cartoon Network in the hotel TV, and I'm like, oh crap, Shigar's coming.
That was a great role too, by the way.
And I don't like that movie. I don't like half that movie.
Why not?
I liked, and I got that like the ending was supposed to be, I don't know, disappointing, or like it's not his story, it's Tommy Lee Jones's story, but it just felt like such a, you didn't end your movie, guys. You just
stopped.
You just stopped. Yeah. I don't care about Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, I do. He's a good actor, but
but not in that role.
I didn't care about his character at all. Yeah.
Yeah, he just kind of kept showing up late.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this guy's pretty fucked up, and then that was it. Then they go to the next thing where somebody else.
It was disappointing.
Yeah, you gotta have the closure. I think.
Yeah,
you gotta have the good closure.
What was the other one? There Will Be Blood. Hated that movie.
I didn't see it.
If you like dramatic fiddles and no talking, is the movie for you.
I'll have to check it out. I mean,
don't.
Okay, I always got to add to my movie repertoire because every week when I come to the podcast,
you don't watch any movies.
I really don't. Yeah. I don't watch a lot of movies. I've caught a lot of flack about it from a lot of people because I don't watch television a lot. I mean, it was on when you got here.
Well, you could watch less Gold Ice Road Truckers and more.
Yeah,
movies.
but see that for me, TV just kind of fills little blocks of time.
I use it as background noise.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it was. Like before you got here for the podcast, it was like, oh, I'm just gonna watch a little bit of TV in the interim. I don't have Netflix. I don't have any of the streaming services. And everybody says, oh, why don't you? I'm like, well, I'd still have to have internet. So I'd still have to have internet through Comcast. And then by the time you add all the streaming services, and B, we like sports. We like to watch the Flyers and, the Eagles and all that stuff. So, I mean, for us, it would suck to lose all that, to lose, baseball, hockey, and all that stuff. We'd be like, oh, man.
Is there a sports stream? I guess not.
There is.
There is.
But it's like, now I'm going to have to pay MLB.com for theirs. I'm going to have to pay NHL.com.
So each one has
They have their streaming services, right? If you're not going through, like, a particular... Like, there's ones you can add onto your cable, but you have to have some.
Because when I found out that, like, the way that cable's bundled and that, like, 80% of the cost is because ESPN's in it, I was like, well, I am never paying for cable again. Fuck your sports.
Yeah, I mean, ESPN is like some of the sports, but so many of it is like local channels, like because Comcast is pretty much runs most of the Philly teams around here. So their channels is like always the Flyers are on the local channels.
Because I know that you like miniatures and you paint them.
Mm-hmm.
What if you were to set up a baseball diamond, paint some baseball guys, listen to it on the radio, and then act out with your toys what's happening?
See, I don't mind it.
I don't know why that popped into my head.
No, that wouldn't be bad. It would be.
No, it would be an insane thing, Jesse.
Well, I'm actually one of the few people that I know that at a baseball game I will keep score in a scoreboard.
Why they put all the numbers up?
See, but that's not just keeping score. That's not just putting a 1 or whatever. It's the whole scorebook of what happens during the game. If you've never seen, like, if you see a baseball coach, you see he's got this big book that he's always writing in, and that keeps track of when runners go where, how, and everything. It's everything that happened over the course of the game. And I guess a lot of people, probably anybody out there who's watching this, probably say the same thing. They can't get into baseball. It's a little harder to watch a whole 9 innings.
It's very boring.
And so keeping score is kind of a way to keep you, especially me, keep you in the game. Yeah,
the game's so boring.
Yeah, well, you're
better bring some numbers into it.
That's it, man. And that's what I got to do to. I mean, I love baseball. I do. I grew up playing it. I grew up watching it, and it's like I remember Mike Schmidt, Philadelphia Philly. I remember watching his 500th home run with my dad.
I do remember because when I was I don't know, like 7th grade, and everybody would shut up about it.
Yeah, and it's those things like that. I remember, I grew up with it. I played it, going through school, and it was, it was a fun thing for that me and my dad had. We always loved sports, and so yeah, it is hard to watch a game. And like, I went to probably my 2nd football game that I've ever been to, and it's like I can't. I think they're going to lose people going to games.
Yeah, football games are a little tough because it's like 30 seconds and then nothing for like 10 minutes.
Well, even just the play and then, play clock till the next snap. But all the times you see commercials and it goes, okay,
you just sit there.
You're just sitting there waiting while they're just somebody talking, or they're almost doing ads while you're there.
Mhm.
They're plugging ads in there, and it's like, and you're like, I'm just sitting here.
Yeah,
I've
been to a couple football games when I was younger.
Yeah, and it's rough. It's harder to get behind that. I mean, baseball, at least it's kind of moving constantly. Kind of.
Yeah, it's just a constant mediocrity.
Yeah, I don't expect too much excitement, but I mean, that's why I'm a hockey fan. And I'm really glad the Wings are back. So if you're into indoor, faster sports, the Wings lacrosse is back in Philadelphia. So to anybody out there who doesn't know, the Wings are back. So go check out some indoor lacrosse. It's a freaking blast.
They're paying you for this?
No, I wish they would, though. The Wings have a lot more money than I do, so I'm pretty sure if they were paying me, it'd be great. But
I can't imagine a lacrosse team has that much money.
I mean, the National Lacrosse Corporation, I guess, the National Indoor Lacrosse, they're located, their headquarters is here in Philadelphia, I found out. So they were like, they sold the Wings team, they moved to somewhere else, and then they were like, our headquarters is here, we got to have a team here. So they're like, we're putting a team back in Philly again. So they said, we're putting it. So yeah, most of the guys have day jobs, really. They do. Most of them work normal day jobs. Sadly, it's not too big of a following. I think it's like a 20-game season, runs for real short. Like, you blink, you miss it. So it's, they play 2 or 3 games a week, and then all of a sudden the playoffs happen, and you're like, shit, I missed the season. What the hell happened? So, but they, unfortunately, that's not televised, and that would be something that I would love to watch.
It's a real shame.
Well, it's a little bit better moving sport, I think. It moves quicker and keeps people interested a little bit more than baseball does, for sure, because a 1-0 pitcher's duel is just not entertainment.
No, I got bored hearing you say that sentence.
See? Exactly. It's the way it is. You can't do it. So it's hard to stay attached to it. But I didn't bring you here to talk sports.
Oh, thank God. I was worried you was a sports podcast. I haven't listened to it yet. It's like, oh, no.
No, definitely not a sports podcast. Probably the farthest thing. That's probably the most I've talked. Actually, I don't think we've even talked about sports before this podcast.
So I'm the most sports.
But we were pretty vague about it.
Because I don't know anything. In England, they call it sport. That's what I know that. They have maths in sport. Because they're wrong.
They got to work with those plurals a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's why we took the language, Jesse.
We made it better.
Well, we won it. In the American Revolution, we beat them, and we got the English language. And then in 1812... we realized they were spelling aluminum wrong, and we got that too.
So that whole thing, that whole war was over that?
Over how they say aluminum wrong.
Oh, okay, I was blurry on that one, but
yeah, no one knows. You know what's nice is that no one knows what the War of 1812 is about, so I might not be wrong.
I could have 3 podcast guests all come on over the course of a couple months, and all of them tell me about. And all of them tell me what the War of 1812 was about, and I wouldn't know which one to believe, to be honest with you.
I don't think they'd know what you were talking about.
They got to know what the War of 1812 is.
I don't think people do.
I mean, I don't know what it was fought over. I'm not gonna lie. I'm in that boat. Sorry, folks. I'm in the boat too.
Do you want to get into it?
Maybe we can work into that later. But
that was Andrew Jackson's big. I was gonna call him a war hero. I'm hesitant to call Andrew Jackson a hero, but that was where he became war famous.
Okay.
He defended New Orleans, I think. I know it was in Louisiana from the British. And I think he had some famous quote, but in my head he always said, "We just pretend they're Indians."
Oh, okay.
Because he killed a lot of Native Americans.
Americans were pretty good at that back then.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson was real good at it. Almost monstrously. No, you know what? Absolutely monstrously.
Yeah. Well, how many? Wait a minute. I figure if one's a murderer, then you get serial killer. Then it's where's monster?
Well, if you, who is it? Eddie Izzard does a bit on that, where he's like murder, serial killer. More than that, we don't know what to do with you, like because he's like Pol Pot.
Yeah, Pol Pot
just sits in a room. Like why? We could execute him. Like, no, he killed too many people. We don't know what to do with them.
He broke the upper limit of
the
justice system.
I don't know what to do now. I guess we'll make Andrew Jackson president. Killed too many people.
Oh man, I love history. It is messed
Me
up in
too.
so many ways. So many ways.
Yeah. You kind of got to take all the... Because it's almost perpetually sad. Like, there's no point in history doesn't have a really sad part, and so you kind of have to just put blinders on while you walk through the history park.
Yeah, because anytime somebody will bring something up, one of my favorite webcomics is The Oatmeal. I don't know if you'll call it a webcomic, but websites. And some of the stuff he does that brings light to things in history, you know, like Christopher Columbus and things like that. And when you look at it, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is what happened? Like, oh, this is horrible.
But even like one of my favorite historical figures is Julius Caesar, and he's got these great notes that he took on stuff, and all these like really cool stories of him just being like a sarcastic asshole. He also committed genocide to the entire nation of Gaul and basically wiped out a people, and is also a horrible monster.
Okay.
But it's like, oh man, but I really like all these quotes in his. So ooh.
Yeah, it is. It's, I guess history is tough like that. Always the whoever's up top, they're always doing something big, but at some other price.
Yeah,
there's some price that might not be. So, like we said, Christopher Columbus. Oh, you know, he discovered this route and kind of made, you know.
No,
North
he never
America
did anything.
Well, I mean, that's what they say, but then it's
Italian. It's Dago American propaganda.
Oh, that's why they celebrate Columbus Day so big in South Philly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I recently learned that Columbus was known to be an idiot in his time. Just messed up, was a monster. People knew that. Didn't like. I think he died in prison.
I wouldn't put it past.
And then that was it. And that's like Amerigo Vespucci was the guy that got the credit for mapping like parts of North America, hence America. And then when Italian immigrants in the 1920s were coming to America, people were like, Italians. And they're like, no, our guy, Columbus, discovered America. And Americans are like, well, our education system's terrible, so I don't know if this is true or not. So I guess you get a holiday.
That's a nice way to earn a holiday. But I think everybody has a holiday or a parade now. So it's pretty much... Yeah. If you're in the right town at the right time, you can have you can get a parade, and in some towns you can just buy a parade if you really feel like it.
You get in New Orleans,
yeah,
it's like $100 for a parade permit.
Yeah, that's not bad. I think we may have to do this.
If I go to New Orleans again, I will 100% have a parade.
That sounds fantastic. You have to have at least 3 people, and you get a free police escort with that $100.
Yeah. Did you learn this from Hannibal Buress?
Yes.
That's where I learned this from. Yeah. So this might not be true.
I'm glad most of our research that we do about our country
comes from stand-up comics.
Relying on stand-up comedians. Great. I'm so proud of myself right now for that. I need a drink. Excuse me 1 second.
I went to New Orleans for a Vampire the Masquerade, like LARP, like I guess it was like a con. They didn't call it a con. So that's what I was doing there. We didn't have time for parade.
I'm going to ask a question, which I have to settle because me and my wife were having this issue. So we had pictures of...
It doesn't happen to a lot of guys, Jeff. She's just lying.
We had pictures from the Ren Fair.
Okay.
And we were sorting through pictures because she's got to reset her phone and all that. So I'm like, okay. I said, oh, you got the pictures from the con. And she's like, it's not a con. I said, it's still a con. I said, it's themed. You bring out a crowd. You have vendors. You pay. It's a con.
I don't think... I think it's closer... I mean, they call it a festival. I think it's closer... But it also... It runs through a season.
Well, the one I was at wasn't. It was the one in Jersey at Columbus. I think it was up north.
If it runs one weekend...
It was like a week, yeah. So
I would... All right, I'll call that... I allow that to be the Renaissance convention.
It felt like a con.
Yeah. Because there's one in Smithfield, New Jersey, that's like one day. It's closer to a con than it is like a festival. But like the PA Run Fair runs months, and so that's
right.
not
a con. No. I can't call that a con. No, this was just like 1 week. They come in, they take over this. I think it's like a campgroundish kind of thing. So you can still see all the activities they have all set up that were for campers, but they blob it down there, and now it's...
As king of conventions, I'll allow this.
Okay, I'm going to have to make sure she watches this video then so we can sort that out. So speaking of king of conventions, I know you and Plus2 spend a lot of time at several different conventions.
Mhm.
Most recently, KatoriCon, which was very recent. I was with you for that one.
Yeah,
just
we were
just
at
one of you.
MagFest too. I wasn't there.
Yeah, so you guys were double booked, I guess.
Mhm.
So what? Well, I guess I should start back from the beginning. What made +2 start? What made you and Noah the other half of +2 comedy?
So I was Noah's roommate in college.
Okay.
And he was already doing stand up at that point, and they were gonna have it was called the King of Campus Comedy. So a bunch of the colleges in New Jersey had essentially an open mic,
Right. Okay.
and then I think like 3 people would win there, and then those 3 would move on to the finals at I think TCNJ, but I could be wrong. And then
No, that sounds familiar because I think a story I've heard in the past involved Noah winning against Vegas.
Opposite Vegas won.
Or I mean Vegas. Yeah, sorry. No, that was the story. Right. Okay, I just transposed
I don't know,
that.
and we did not like Vegas then. But yeah. So Noah's like, you should come out and do it. And I was like, I've never done stand up before. So Noah's a good teacher, and he studied stand up. He reads books on it. He gets the. I've always compared me and Noah in +2 comedy. Noah's a wizard and I'm a sorcerer.
Okay.
So like he's accrued his stand up knowledge and applies it kind of more formulaically. Where once I got joke structure, I just kind of wing it a lot.
Okay. No, it makes sense.
And yeah, and we both moved on there, and then we both got beat, I think, by Vegas Lancaster, and then I liked it a lot, and I kept at it. Noah kept me at it,
and so then that's you guys started to.
The guy who hosted the King Campus Comedy Tour, TJ Del Reno, was me and Noah did a lot of nerd heavy stuff, and then we always have this phenomena when we start doing stand up, like other people's sets will get nerdier because they're like, oh, they're talking about. I was gonna say Skyrim, but it wouldn't have been Skyrim yet.
Yeah,
because we're old. You talked about Star Wars. I'm gonna talk about Star Wars. And so guys, so the host started to get super nerdy to the point where people weren't laughing except for me and Noah from the back, and he was like, do you guys ever go to conventions? And we were like, yeah, sometimes. At that point, I used to go to Otakon a whole lot. And he was like, do people do stand-up? And we said no, which is not true. Uncle Yo had already been doing stand-up, I think. And he was like, we should do stand-up at conventions. And we putzed around and talked about it for like 2 years. And then finally, Armageddon in Ohio booked us. And that was our first show.
Nice. So then when did the podcast start from that? Somewhere around the same time, or was that just a thing?
We were in college still, so we had a radio show that was very similar. It had a lot more music,
right?
But we mixed it in. But we were kind of like a nerdy morning zoo.
Okay.
And we did that for years, and then that's like the podcast isn't that old, and yet I'm like, I don't remember my life before I had a podcast. He was just like, we're gonna do a podcast. I want to do it live. I want to do it in a game store, and I was like, sure. And we just started doing it. I mean, everyone that was once that like everybody famous already had a podcast at that point, and now it was the point where like all your friends were getting podcasts, and we're like, well, I guess we better do this too.
Yeah.
But
no, well, I try to see what brings people together for something like that. Why. Why comedy more for you guys, which again, like you explained, but to see what brings people together in something like that is it's interesting for me because I'm trying to see. I mean, I got exposed
trying to understand human emotion.
Well, a little bit that, but sometimes I try to see why people want to be in comedy and what makes them stay in it.
So it's just trauma, Jesse.
It seems like it because a lot of the comedians you see, and it does seem like you get this, like everybody says, this typical kind of dreary comedian. They kind of get like a little sordid and they get kind of cynical, and it's so I kind of wonder why people, in comedy want to, it's like why, like what makes you want to do it, and I see the podcast outside of that. I mean, even if you guys weren't doing comedy, you'd still have, the +2 podcast, and there's so many things that I've seen, you guys do at cons other than stand up.
Mm-hmm.
So, it leaves you other options, at least as far as performing. And performing can be more than just the comedy part. So I know comedy's just, it's brutal. Like, I watch people go up. I mean, I spend a lot of time at High Note Humor, as I've mentioned on here before, and, you see people that go up there, and they're like, so you see somebody go up there on stage that first time, so full of hope, so bright-eyed, and you're like, I really hope this guy, like, doesn't quit. Because it's so rough going up there your first time, and you just can't trigger that laugh emotion. And to know, you can't just say, laugh. No, it just doesn't work. You need to get it right, and like you said, learn how to build the jokes and do that and keep coming back. And some of these guys, they go up there and they're just like, yeah, people at work tell me I'm funny, so I'm here now. It's like, oh, man, please no.
Yeah, and that's always part of, like, it's tough to explain to people that you are going to fail. It's going to happen a lot.
Yeah.
Jokes are not going to land. Don't get mad. I mean, you're going to get upset. There's nothing you could do about that because it's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah.
But it just means you got to work on stuff. Like, I change wording? Can I change pace? Is the joke no good at all? Like, and then just come back at it. Because the first King Campus Comedy, the preliminary whatever, I did pretty well, but I think it was just because I had actually worked on a stand-up set with a guy who had done stand-up before, and the rest, it was like 20 frat dudes who were like really funny at parties. So, but it's once you get up there, you're like, oh, this is not storytelling. This is different. Yeah. And so then we went to the preliminaries, and it was a bunch of dudes like Noah who had been doing, like, he knew everybody there. And first we got to talk with the guy, and I forget his name. He runs a comedy school, and like he was like a mentor to Jon Stewart and a mentor to a couple famous comedians.
No, that's not right.
I forget the dude's name, but his whole thing, like, his inspirational speech was just, "You're gonna fail, you're gonna bomb, it's gonna happen a lot. Good night." Wow. And then I got up there and was like, "Oh, now it's happening now." And it sucked, and I almost ran off stage because it was just going so poorly.
Wow. Yeah, and that's why I wonder, like, why people want to, like, what makes people stay with it. And
but when it worked, it was really great.
Yeah, that's true.
And a lot of comedians don't have. It's gonna be mean. We don't. I mean, it's mean to me too. I don't have like another artistic outlet really, aside from painting Warhammer dudes. Like, I don't have any musical talent. I can't paint. I can't draw. And so, but comedy's just a thing that's always felt kind of natural. And so even when you suck at it, it feels good to do it. And I like a lot of, there's some comics, I guess they're musicians too, but most of the guys I know, like, that's their thing. That's where they get to express themselves.
It's an outlet in therapy almost.
Absolutely.
For a lot of people, yeah. And they seem like I had a rough holiday like time right around the holidays, and I was like, I might just go up just to vent. Just to get up on stage and just vent, but I stayed off because they need me to run the DJ slider things and make music happen. So that's what they, just tell me to dance, and that's what I do. So So, I mean, it is cool to see where you guys have come from as far as that. I mean, I've been with you guys, I've been hanging around for probably a little over a year now, trying to see what the podcast was like, and it was cool to see, the stand up from both of you outside of it, because I see, the podcast, and I see the two of you, and then to see your stand up or to see you guys outside of the podcast, it was weird. It was almost like different people to see the transition and to see how it...
Like at PowderCon, you mean?
Well, like PowderCon or wherever else. Like, I've seen Noah at things, and like when I saw him at the first time I met him at a convention, the first time I actually knew him and saw him, it was weird to see like him and then talk to him after. Mm-hmm. Like, it was almost a little celebrity and starstruck kind of. Just I mean, I didn't even know him really at that time, so it's not like I was like, oh, it's... like if you said a huge comedian and it's like, oh, I know who that is. I didn't follow. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I don't follow the geek stuff too much, so I'm not really into the con life very much back then. And so when I met him, it was like, oh, cool, it's nice seeing you stand up, man, and we got to talk a little bit, but it was it's interesting to see who they are on and off the stage, and even knowing some of the other guys that are at High Note, to know them from here's High Note and now here's them just on a Friday afternoon talking to them. It really does feel like two different people. It's almost the persona that some people get on stage. So it's been kind of neat to see, like you guys, and get to know you guys for that. And it's been fun. And the podcast has been fun. I've loved working on the podcast with you guys. It's been fun. And now that you guys have the video podcast, it's just something neat. I thought about it and I was like, well, why can't we do it on video? I mean, you guys, I had all this, pretty much most of this equipment sitting around, and I said, let's give it a shot. And so I thought it'll be fun. So I'm glad I could help you guys. I really am.
And I'm happy to be on. I wanted to do it so we could put stuff on Twitch, just because I fully believe Twitch is. I mean, it's already incredibly popular, but I think it's going to eventually reach like the mainstream level that YouTube has now.
Yeah.
Just because apparently YouTube's jerks, and Twitch just seems great. It treats people well, and
yeah, I mean, I worry about that a little bit with this, as far as how to get views, and I've always wondered about that, and I feel a little hung up because I don't know how to do all that. There's algorithms in this. Yeah. Nope. So I'm like, I have no idea, so I just kind of put it up and hope. So that's. But yeah, it's been. So do you guys have any shows coming up, or you guys don't have anything for a while right now? Yeah, no cons or anything for a while.
When you said, because before we started, you were like, you guys got cons coming up. I was like, oh, I have nothing to plug. Oh, no, I moved the podcast on Thursdays. That's it. No, I don't even know when.
Well, I know there was the one thing you talked about yesterday, but is that not talked about yet? Because this won't air for at least 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, then we're doing PowderCon in New York City.
There you go.
So
when do you have an idea of when that is ish? No. Well, I'm sure I'll get the information from you long before then.
Get it from Noah's fiance, the keeper of information.
I gotta get him on so we can get more information out of him. So.
Yeah, PowderCon's PowderCon. I get it. Cons. PowderCon is not a con. Cons are run very strangely. They have their own weird little culture. It can be a little. I don't want to be insulting because I love cons. Obviously, we do it all the time, but they can be run poorly, and especially in terms of entertainment and booking entertainment and knowing how to book entertainment. PowderCon is run by a lady who used to do like punk rock bookings, and so her world is concerts and music, and so they do these one-day conventions in a music venue. Like we did when we did it in Philly, it was Living Arts Center.
Okay.
Does that ring?
The TLA?
Yeah, TLA.
Yeah. The Theater of Living Arts, right?
Yes, that's it. And yeah, it's like one day it's in a concert venue. They have like craft stations. It's 21 plus. They have like it's not called butterbeer pong, but it's like Quidditch beer pong. It's fun. There's like a quiz. There's just like a bunch of little activities going on, but it's an amazing time. And we love doing it. And I'm not a big music person, so I didn't appreciate that we were like performing on the TLA stage until Noah's sister, who is a music person, freaked out on us for getting to do it. I was like, oh, I guess this matters.
Yeah, it's a pretty big venue for Philadelphia. A lot of bands play there. There's concerts there every week. Usually, a lot of big names come through and play the TLA.
Yeah,
so.
and then we did it again in Long Island. There's like a famous venue there. I don't even know the name, but like they have a whole wall that's Korn signed it, Rolling Stones signed it, Flogging Molly signed it, and then it's probably been painted over, but down on the bottom in one of the corners it just says +2 Comedy was here.
There you go.
So
hey,
I took pictures, so they can't take that away from me.
Well, you've always got that now. So well, at least when PowderCon's coming up, hopefully we'll get some information beforehand, so I'll post it with the video so we have something up to make sure we get people interested. But it's up in New York this year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
We'll be in the city.
In the city. Love it. So I am a little bit of a geek, though. Not too big, but a little bit. So I do like to ask all my guests, what is your favorite video game? Now, if it's a series, narrow it down to one. But it can be arcade, console, that one game that if you sold back your whole console, you'd still keep the disc, or
Ocarina of Time, Zelda: The Ocarina of Time.
Okay, good choice.
That is a game. The way that people, or at least the people in my life, feel about like Final Fantasy VII, I feel about Ocarina of Time. I don't know why. I like this. It's got a good story, but it's not like super emotional like Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
But like I'm in love with it. I haven't done it the last couple of years, but usually I got it on Christmas one year when I was a kid, and then like every Christmas I'd plug the N64 back
Nice.
in and do a playthrough. But yeah, I love that game.
It's a good game. I mean, I never actually played it because I never owned an N64. But I've seen the love. I've seen a lot of videos for it. I mean, it was a great game on the 64.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it did really push the N64 to what it was capable
and
of.
It was my first open world. I mean, not super open world, but it had like 3 or 4 big areas you could wander around.
Yeah, which is much nicer than what it used to be, which
you could
was
do
so
stuff
linear.
kind of at your. Like you could do a couple of the temples in different orders if you wanted to, and you'd get different stuff, and that was new for me. I don't think I'd ever played a game where you had choices that weren't going right.
Yeah, and that was big back then, back when they added the 3D stuff, and I love that about those games. So I think the last video I talked about Fallout 4 or Fallout 3 actually, which was probably mine. And that open world, it just hooks me.
Yeah, just New Vegas is in the top 5 of favorite games ever.
Yeah, the problem I had with New Vegas was the bugs. It was so buggy. No, that was it. It was just buggy. No, I loved the game. I loved that they added
when you
weapon
said
repair.
Bugs, I didn't think.
No,
like
you mean like the giant?
Like too many rad scorps, man.
Yeah, no. I didn't like how buggy it was. Like I could be playing and walking through a long stretch of nothing, and then the game would just lock.
See, I'm like, I got to it very late, and I think because I heard people say this, but like the version I had, I was like, got none of these glitches.
What was it on?
It was on the 360.
360,
but
yeah.
I think it was like the Game of the Year edition, not the initial release.
Yeah.
I got into Fallout late. I didn't play 3 until after New Vegas.
Well, see, I liked some things about New Vegas. It had, you could repair your weapons different. You could make those repair kits.
I got into it more, too. Like,
yeah.
The story hooked me, I think, the most out of the new Fallout games.
There was a lot to do.
Yeah.
With all the different factions, you could just wander around and just harass factions, and there were so many side stories.
That the fact that how you treated other people. So if you pissed off the Legion too much, and I always did, because can I curse?
Yeah.
Fuck those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
But they would attack you unless you were wearing another faction's uniform.
Right.
Like what you wore mattered. Because I played Skyrim, and it always bothered, because Skyrim's just nothing but like a facade of choices that mean nothing.
Yeah.
And I remember I did the Dark Brotherhood quest, the final quest. You kill the Emperor, and I killed the Emperor, and then I walked around Skyrim wearing the Emperor's clothes, and people were just like, "Hey, you better not act up in this town, kid." It's like, I am the Emperor.
Yeah, that was the thing that bothered me about Skyrim. It's like the game's going to start here, and it's going to end here.
Yeah.
But Fallout 3 in New Vegas, it was, you're going to start here. Where you go depends on, what you did. And I mean,
like what you said, to like those speech trees went different way. Like,
yeah,
I started playing Skyrim again just because I was bored and it's very pretty.
It is. It's fun. Don't get me wrong.
You talk to somebody and he's like, "Hey, do you like the Battleborn or the Greymanes?" And it doesn't matter what you say, because he'll be like, "Auto response. Here's a quest." And I'm like, ugh.
Well, and I guess that was the problem that people say about any Legend of Zelda game is your non-talking character, which kind of I mean, you had that in Final Fantasy VII, really, because Cloud doesn't say a damn thing either. But, the non-talking protagonist, which people say, well, we want you to project yourself in there. We want you to feel like it's you thinking and you but I'm like...
But that's also just a different... Like, I'm not looking for that in every game. It bothers me in Skyrim because they pretended.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that they were Fallout in that your choices mattered.
Yeah.
But, like, Zelda didn't... They're just like, you're a hero. Here's your quest. Do this. Do that. Like, all right, you gathered the crystals. Now this thing's happening.
Yeah.
They weren't. It wasn't like, do you want to gather the crystals? Like, no. Well, too bad.
You're doing it anyway. There was a game that did that, and I can't remember what it was. Well, I know there was one. It was Paper Mario on the Wii. They had a thing. It's like, we need you to gather these. It's like, I don't want to do it. Like,
The game should just end.
But no, it's like, you have to do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like, but if you don't do it, the world's going to end. You got to do it. Like, no, okay, game over. And it straight up does it. It's like, okay, it tells you that's what's going to happen. So it doesn't force you to make the decision, but it kind of does. So before this whole thing started, and I didn't set this up properly, so I'm going to have to. Where did I? I think I did. Or is this last week's? Yep, that's last week's.
Oh wait, what was that?
That was. If you want to see Jeff Colella's picture, I can bring this up. This was
a
Jeff.
little planet and a Pokeball. I like these.
This was an interesting one, but I'm going to try to do this on the fly.
Is it a stinky poop I see down there in the bottom?
At the bottom, yeah, you have to have the stinky poop.
What's in the top right? I don't have my contacts.
Oh, that is an alligator.
Oh, nice.
That was an interesting one that he talked about. How I gotta get your picture up. I'm sorry, I screwed this all up. I'm gonna hold it up because
I'm gonna
screwed
pretend
up
I drew
bad.
this stuff. This stuff's pretty good.
I like yours. Yours is good. But he's like, oh yeah, I draw in class, and it was like, you start with the less than sign, then you draw a heart in the mouth, and it's like, and he like had this really easy way to draw a really easy alligator. I was like, well, damn. And he's like, oh yeah, and then you just do this, and you draw. I was like, and it just all comes together. I was like, damn. And it's like, but he pulled it out of his head like as he was drawing the thing. So I'm gonna hold this up for everybody here, so we can all see, and we're gonna get this straightened up here. So, seeing as I screwed up on this one, we have. So I know you started with the pirate.
Yeah.
Over to the right there. So you got the pirate.
Yeah.
And
he's angry.
So I noticed the red hair.
Yeah.
I definitely.
Well, I have red hair, so I like to see more representation.
So, well, he's a sad pirate though. Why is he a sad pirate?
He doesn't show much on this side, but he's got little angry eyes. So
he's got the angry eye. Okay, I got you.
He does look more sad on this side.
Yeah, from this side he's a sad pirate.
It's because we're seeing the inside of his soul on this side.
Oh, okay.
So he's sad on his anger is just a projection because he's sad.
So what about Boba Fett there?
Oh, nice. I'm glad that
just
you
felt
could tell
Boba Fett.
Yeah, well, that's every 10 seconds. I think of Boba Fett. Where the average man, I think, is supposed to think of sex, I just think of Boba Fett. So, couldn't go one drawing without Boba Fett showing up. There's a mildly racist ninja there.
It's the lights are bright. That's all. The lights are bright, so we're gonna go with that.
And then I ran out of stuff, so I drew a.
I think you drew the cop next.
Yep,
is that the cop? Okay, we got the cop in the bottom left there.
And then I was going for like a skull. But I realized I drew like a pig nose instead of the bone nose.
Okay.
So I actually kind of like how that turned out, though.
It is. It's a little cool. Twisted. I mean, you could almost use that as a logo for something.
Yeah, I dig it.
I kind of like that. It's interesting. So that's and rushed.
Yeah, that was the last thing I squeezed in.
That was rushed, so it kind of fit in there. But it's no, but I like that. That's actually a really cool one. Yeah. He even I think from this side he still kind of looks like a sad pirate. If we look at him.
I guess he is. I think he got sadder after I drew him.
Well,
I think he was like, "I'm a pirate. I'm kick ass here." Oh, Boba Fett, man.
He's a little sad now because he's like, "Oh man, Boba Fett wins on this one." So I'm gonna ask you another question. I got to bring it down a little bit, and you guys probably know about this question because you guys grilled me on this one. When I was on your podcast,
my own podcast,
you don't even listen. It might not be a bad idea in some of them. So,
hey, wait a minute.
Well, even you said earlier, it is like squeezing blood out of a rock with some
No, you
guess,
said
so.
that.
Okay, well, I thought you agreed. You did agree.
I did, but I've never said that phrase.
All right, that's fair. So if today was your last day on Earth, and
Jack off.
You know, no, that's.
Well,
no, that could answer the question, even though you didn't know, even though you didn't answer it. How would you feel about the life you've led? So there you go. I mean, you just answered the question. So we'll go.
Feel like this.
No, but how would you feel about? I mean, I'm not just saying like, oh well, I haven't accomplished everything I wanted because I know we're younger and stuff like that. So, how would you feel about like the people, the relationships, or how would people feel about you at your funeral?
So this is something I started seeing a therapist. That just feels like forever. Maybe like 3 months ago, and maybe less than that. I don't know. And that was something I like. There's stuff I know about myself where I'm like, yeah, I know that issue exists. But there was one, and it was the first day we were there, and we were just kind of hashing out what we had talked about. And he was like, you talk really poorly about yourself. And I was like, huh, I guess so. It's because, like 3 months ago, I would have been, I'm constantly pursued by my own thoughts of feeling like inadequate and feeling like I grew up all through like grade school and high school being told like, oh, you're really smart, now you got a lot of potential. And then I'm like, and now I don't feel like I've used any of that.
Yeah.
But so you have to sometimes step back and look at, or I have to step back and look at the stuff I have accomplished, because like, oh man, we had just finished, I think, too many games, and like me and Noah were telling a story about how we were hanging out with Brental Floss and Keith Apicary, and like Noah, or it was the wrestling match at Too Many Games, and like how I took a selfie with Keith Apicary and Mega Ran, and then Noah got like drop kicked by Keith Apicary. And one of our friends was like, you guys live an amazing life. And we were like, oh yeah, I guess we do. So now I feel like I still feel like I could do more, and I feel like I haven't, lived up to my potential, but I also know that I have done a lot in terms of like my dreams and like what I've wanted to do with my life. So
And what about as far as like, human relationship wise, things like that? Like I always say the example, like, at your funeral, like, because I don't want to be somebody that's remembered as when someone comes up to do my eulogy and just says, oh, he was a great guy. That's the last thing you want to hear. It just seems empty.
Mm-hmm.
It's because that's what you leave. You leave behind the legacy and the memories and probably student loan debt. But
no, I got none. I'd love for them to be like, he's the only dude that had no student loan debt.
It's a great eulogy right there.
Yeah.
Man, maybe not how I want to get remembered, but so what about that sort of thing?
As far as I know, I feel like I've had, aside from one glaring mistake, I've had really good human interactions.
Okay, cool.
In fact, that might come up like, man, he was with a monster for a long. What a jerk for bringing her into everybody's lives.
What a saint for not like just freaking out, like, and putting up with something.
Well,
like
I mean,
that.
there was I did a lot constantly. It was all just private on like the bathroom floor, clutching the side of my head.
Oh, okay.
And silently screaming.
Well, that's a different way of doing it, I guess. Not a method I've learned.
Yeah,
but,
well, I don't murder all my problems like you, Jesse.
I have not murdered any of my problems. I mean, unless you count clay pigeons, that's the last problem of mine that I've murdered. So,
do you breathe life into your clay pigeons before you steal it away?
No, they're just they're flying clay pigeons. And
I was worried you were like giving them memories and feelings and then killing them.
You're making me out to be a monster. That's horrible.
The Jesse in my head is a terrible person.
That's fucked up, man. What the hell? The guy who's like, oh man, let me give you my time and help you with your podcast.
Do so much to help.
But he's a fucking monster. This guy. This guy says, oh, let me take this orange disc and make it feel and give it a past and a history. Pull. Boom.
The next two in the line are its children.
Yeah, what the hell, man? All right, well, seeing as I have half an answer to this question because I know where it's not. But if you could, because Noah didn't get to see this part because I haven't been asking this question long. But if you could go back to a point in your life, not like a day or whatever, but if you could have a point in your life where you could spend it in that time of your life, for eternity, which again is part of the last question, where would you go?
Like, Like a moment or like
A moment, a time, like some people say, oh man, that like my freshman year of,
yeah, I
of
mean,
college, like something like that.
late teens, early 20s, I didn't care about anything, and like that was a really good time. I remember. I mean, I guess that's true for everybody. Like that's their
Oh, not always. That's not
yeah. I
always
guess
true.
that's true, but I do like Adult Swim. It just found its like peak, and that was like my whole life. Like me and my friends, our entire culture revolved around Adult Swim. Moment would be this past or no two, not this summer, but the summer before that's Otakon.
Okay.
Because it was the last year it was in Baltimore. It just had this like 90s movie ending feeling to it because a lot of people were like, this is our last year because we don't want to go to DC, which the DC Convention Center was really nice and it was a good Otakon, but like it wasn't the last 10 years of Otakon. And a lot of those people had been going there for that whole time, myself included. I went there before, Plus Two Comedy existed, and it was they gave us the main room finally, so it was like 1,000 people, which is insane. And I think everybody there had seen us before, and so they were there to see us. And it was just this, it was an amazing crowd, and I was like, this is the best moment of my life.
Wow, that's cool. Well, and it was neat when we saw how many people at KatoriCon.
KatoriCon. That's another one that it's a lot of the same people, and we've been there for 4 years. Been doing this too long.
Well, we stayed outside the room waiting when we got there because you guys had the stand up coming up, and so we stood outside the room because we were like, oh, I think there's still the panel's still going on in there, and we were like, let's take a peek in. The panel was long over.
Yeah,
there was just everybody filing in, waiting for you guys, which was like,
cool.
Yeah, that was really. I mean, that was like a neat moment. I was like, wow, these guys are just all coming in and hanging out, knowing that it's you guys. And especially because it was a shit day as far as the weather.
Yeah,
it was like 80 below. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but somewhere around there, and it was cold as hell, and the snow was still on the ground, so driving wasn't even great getting there. But people were like, "Nah, we're coming out," and they wanted to see the con. And a lot of people. It was great to see that many people come out for you guys, even in that.
That felt really cool.
So that was really neat to get to see it.
Mag Laughs show sucked.
Well, the crowd, which the picture you posted, the crowd did voice their opinion of Noah not coming. So it's a great picture, and you'll have to check it out on Plus Two's Facebook. I'll put the link down below to those guys. So definitely check those guys out and come see some cons with them. But before we wrap up, the image I didn't screw up, which is right here, is an ink blot. I make an ink blot for every one of my guests. They're all made by me, acrylic on paper, real high-class stuff. I don't know how to do it with ink yet, so the viewers can see exactly what you're looking at. So I'm trying to find out what you see.
Already gone through like 3 things.
Well, what are they? I want to hear them.
Although I guess it says something. I instantly saw a face, and I almost always see faces in ink blots, so that's probably. It's probably like 8 issues right there that I don't know about.
No, well, that seems pretty standard. People always seem to say there's a face somewhere in them.
I guess that is
because it's symmetrical.
Yeah, I guess I remember that like humans see faces like in stuff all the time. That's why, Jesus in toast.
Yeah, someone saw Trump in a dog ear.
Oh, no,
that was a new one. That was a weird one. Yeah, there's a big floppy dog ear turned up on its side, and someone took a picture inside, and it's. Look it up, folks. It's interesting. It's a little weird, actually. But what else besides the face?
It looks like the Predator.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see the Predator in there.
Those are his 2. Predator's got beady little eyes when he takes that mask off.
Yeah.
That there's his vagina face, also a trademark of the Predator, and these are his mandibles that come out when he roars. When
his face dreads, yeah.
Yeah, when he does the big reveal of his face every movie. And then I saw a dwarf. There's his little really racist World of Warcraft nose that dwarves have, and then that's his beard.
The big bulbous nose,
big,
yeah.
Yeah, big beard.
Oh yeah.
So I guess 2. I went through 2. I forget what. I guess I kind of saw a bug, but then the bug became the Predator.
Well, I think the Predator would just qualify as a bug.
No.
Well, close. I don't know. He creeps me the hell out.
No, he was supposed to be a bug originally.
Oh, wow.
The Predator was going to be the worst movie of all time, and then because production was so terrible and just so many disasters happened, it became an amazing movie completely on accident.
Oh, that's a happy accident,
Yeah.
for damn sure. So that is yours to keep.
Oh,
You can hang on to the predator or whatever else you
Dwarf
might see
predator.
in it. Yeah, the dwarven predator.
I guess that's not a movie. I don't know. I like that concept.
That could be something. We could pitch that.
Yeah, or like Predator, Lord of the Rings crossover.
Ooh, I would watch the hell out of that. I wasn't a big Lord of the Rings fan, but I would watch the hell out of watching him chase down Legolas.
Yeah, well, that's how it would end with him getting to the ring, and then he's like, I don't want it. He just wanted the thrill of the hunt.
He can already turn invisible.
That's a really good point.
So he wouldn't need the ring.
No.
Or does he already have the ring? Is that why he turns invisible?
No, his invisibility has a telltale shimmer.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not as good.
And it doesn't...
It shorts out in water for some reason.
That's not Apex Predator kind of crap. When your main source of stealth goes away because of moisture, I'm not a big fan.
I think they just haven't worked, because that's technology. They don't do that naturally. And I think that they're like, meh, so you could see me now. I'm still a horrible, scary monster, man.
That's very true. So, but I want to thank you again for coming on and for putting up with me with all the +2 stuff for sure.
And I called you a monster about it, so we're even.
Well, that's like every Thursday when we record +2, so it's all good.
See me.
So it's all good. But no, but thank you for coming on. I'm going to post some links below to +2 Comedy. Do you want me to post any for your Facebook or anything below if you want people to follow you? Or just a +2?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
I have Twitter. It's William Comedy, I think.
You don't even know your own Twitter?
No, I didn't have one for a long time.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get into it with this.
I just used the +2 Comedy one, and then Noah finally yelled at me for too many racy posts, and he's like, "Just make your own Twitter." I'm like, "Fine."
Well, I'll put the +2 Facebook underneath, which keeps track of you guys pretty much, and where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, and most of the.
Good with that.
And I'm sure the +2 Twitter. I'll get all that information. I have some of it, but I'm so used to it just being on my Facebook that I don't look at the address anymore. So, so I'll definitely post all that below. So definitely go down, check these guys out. They're a lot of fun. Their podcast streams live every Thursday from Gamers Vault in Medford, New Jersey. So every Thursday, 8:00-ish, we try to stream it. We try to start it. So check them out every week. And the podcast is also on Podcast Land, Stitcher, iTunes, all those good places.
You can get a podcast.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere you can get a podcast. Not where you get this one, because this one's just video only. Because
what? I didn't know that.
It is only video.
Bullshit.
Well, when I don't screw up all the video cues and stuff like that, and put up the stuff, I do try to bring the pictures like they were seeing there below that I just got rid of. So I try to have that little bit of video, ish to my podcast without, and I thought audio stuff, it just wouldn't. An Inkblot wouldn't really translate really well over to audio.
I thought I described it really well.
I think you did, but then it's a great description, but what are you describing? And it's
the Predator, Jesse.
Well, see, but then you can hold it this way, and then
shit,
they don't know what you're even looking at.
Oh fuck! I didn't even think you could hold it that way. Nah, it's like two people praying over a clamshell. Oh, and they're underwater, because those are the bubbles. I guess they're coming out of their butts.
Not my good old fart bubbles. We got classy at the end of this one. So there you go, people. People praying to the clam god underwater and fart bubbles.
Be real gassy.
That's.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe down there. Helps me out a lot. Helps me keep making these things and bringing them out to you every week. So like and subscribe to these guys as well. Come check out the podcast. I'm going to be hoping you guys are all watching. And as always, don't forget your toilet poncho. Thank you so much.